Nvidia explodes on earnings, and what does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, we've been going over that in this video, of course, and we're still coming at it from the God angle, but I finally received my new computer. It's right here, actually, the big bad beast. It's the Asus Hyperion. But I don't have a keyboard, so I can't set it up today. And but we will likely have live streams, maybe tomorrow, but definitely next week. Anyways, into the charts we go. Right on over here. I actually don't know if you could hear me that well because the microphone was a little bit further away. But in this case, I did want to start it off with Nvidia, mostly because, well, Bitcoin's been sideways and boring, and this is a thing that's moving, so it's more interesting right now. Anyways, Nvidia popping back up to about 720 on earnings. So what is relevant about 720? 720 is actually the last major gap on the weekly right here. So I would be looking at this as actually still a likely top. I mean, this is kind of a nice, do you want to call it a shooting star, doji dildo reversal? You can call it whatever the hell that you want. But still likely the reversal does hold, I suspect. In this case, we do see that this is going to be accompanied by bearish divergence on the weekly, which is just 1 day away from confirming. And on top of that, we have seen that a major Fibonacci extension from the past major breakout has been hit. This extension over here, I just randomly saw on the chart because someone asked me to chart this one, like, must have been like a month or two ago when it was still within this consolidation right here, as to what sort of areas of interest the upside would still be, I suppose, interesting, and well, it's hit that. So this is a good place for a nice pullback. I think very likely you see like 630 hit in the coming month, maybe even all the way down to like upper 500s before the next sort of higher low tries to get put in. But overall, does that matter for Bitcoin? Well, we can look at correlation coefficient between Nvidia and Bitcoin right here, represented in the blue and red. The red is the adaptive regression, and we can see that, yeah, generally they do have pretty strong correlations. But if you actually really do look at the data, it just seems to me that Nvidia goes up, and the only reason why they decorrelate is because Bitcoin doesn't go up with it. So fair enough. I did think that was rather interesting, perhaps, because I do see a lot of people talking about Nvidia going up being good for Bitcoin. I don't think it matters all that much. I don't think that they're actually that correlated. When we're looking for like strong correlations, we're looking for something like this, like GBTC, for example, which is something that I brought up many times in the past, where you see it like very strong correlation. Above spot 90 for most of its history. And in this case, well, GBTC chart basically looks the exact same as a Bitcoin chart anyways. All right, sweet. So now that we've gone through that, I also did forget to mention that the monthly time frame is also building potential for bearish divergence right here. I mean, you are going to see lower highs on the monthly RSI as long as it's below the November 21 high, which is all the way as long as it's, which is like 330. So it's got some ways to go. We probably do see some like this going on right here. If you are looking at the RSI overall, you're going to see divergence along this trend line. So the current rally overall can continue a little bit more, but I would be aware that Nvidia is probably coming up to like a major macro high. Sometime this year, probably later this year. But in the short term, pops back up, fills the gap, probably comes back down, probably tries for a higher low, either at 630 or maybe like upper 500s. And then the macro rally continues, and then the monthly divergence will play out sometime later this year. Just something to be aware of. Anyways, going on over into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is actually quite interesting, despite the more or less boring sideways behavior. I'll explain why soon, but first things first, daily statistics for Thursday. As always, Thursday is the most likely day to close to the downside for Bitcoin. Out of all Thursdays measured in Bitcoin's history for CME and spot price action, about 41.67% have closed negatively. If we go over here to spot price action, I mean, it's actually, I think, a little bit less. I think it's like 39.5%. Have only closed positively, and but it does have the lowest negative return out of any weekday. So 1.58%. Let's see what that would look like in terms of the current range for today. Keeping in mind that yesterday's range actually played out pretty damn well as well. 153 to the downside today. I mean, we've already kind of seen that move actually happen. That would be 51,000 to the downside, and to the upside, in the case that we have seen positive closures on Thursdays, about 2.25% on average returned, which would actually put Bitcoin basically back around the highs of this rally at 53,000 bucks. So likely the range for today. Like I've been saying for the past few days, here sideways is good for the Bulaws, is going to favor long-term continuation, but it's kind of like the Barras are on a bit of a like a timer right now. If the Barrow is going to take over, I would expect it to happen like between now and probably next Wednesday. Yeah, something like that next Wednesday. And still the same sort of conditions for confirming a short-term reversal here would be the same, with Bitcoin coming back down and closing very specifically below the lows of this week. Or if you're on CME, I believe just under like 51,000 bucks. Would also do it for me. Until then, it's potential kind of like, in the background, but not actionable, at least in the way that I look at things. Anyways, I'll get into the explanation of why as to now. I'll get into the explanation of why. Can I even speak fucking English? What I'm trying to explain here is why sideways is going to favor the Bulaws, as we've been saying for the past few days. So as you can see here on the daily time frame, the HPDR bands have now caught up to current price action. In fact, Bitcoin's even operating below the median as of right now. Bitcoin getting its first daily closure below yesterday for the first time since basically beginning of this month in February. So the more that it fills out this range right here, the more and more naturally that we will see volatility contract and then set up for another overall signal. Now, volatility is contracting pretty well thus far, so I'd say that this is starting to get quite mature. So still, maybe like 5 to 6 more days at most, and then we should have a resolution. But for right now, the HPDRO representing directional volatility is also having a bullish reset as it is. So more sideways here is going to favor the Bulaws. I really... personally speaking, I can't really get bearish on this again as long as Bitcoin is closing above this week's lows minimum. Below there, and it's not really like bearish is not the right terminology. It's just I would be looking for a pretty decent pullback, somewhere around like 47 to 48 at minimum, maybe even a little bit lower than that. Definitely possible as well, perhaps all the way down to 46, but somewhere in that pocket would look good for the next sort of attempt at a higher low, if that were even to happen at all. Until then, if Bitcoin can hold sideways here for a little bit of time, or like I say, like just under a week, let's say, it's more likely to actually, trade back up towards the north side of this 50% range high, which is all the way at 56,000 bucks now. So again, that is going to start to look, overall good, if you will. Also should be cognizant that on CME, there is a nice little gap on price action. It's just relevant on the very short-term time frame. So perhaps we do see a bit of a short-term time frame test to the downside, somewhere around like 51.4, 51.5 region. Again, doesn't really do anything for the overall range. Need to see a closure below this week's low. Also of interest here, let me pop back on over here. All right, let's go to this chart, actually. Let's use this one. We do see that, where is it? Where's my Dixie? Where's my Dixie? There's my Dixie. Found it. We can see that Dixie's actually finding a bit of a local high as well. So I don't really, to be honest, I'm fucking bored when I talk about shit like this or like Nvidia as well. But hey, to be fair, it does look like a nice little local high right here. Do we see that inverse play where Dixie comes down, Bitcoin goes up on a weakening dollar? Perhaps yes. I think that would also kind of strengthen the overall bull case. But then again, how good of a relationship is that? We've seen both rally throughout basically January and February. I mean, they rallied hand in hand, right? So how much does it matter? I don't know. But fair enough. If you're looking for something to talk about on Twitter, perhaps that would be a good one, I suppose. Maybe we can also just quickly look at Bitcoin dominance as well. Bitcoin dominance starting to get more and more interesting here. I do still look at this as actually overall bullish. We did get a big correction at the 55 EMA right here. But this has been 1, 2, 3 going on 4 months now. I mean, this is it's more likely to resolve to the upside than produce a macro reversal, especially as long as it's above the January lows. If it takes out the January lows, okay, I'm wrong on that. Going to come very likely back down, well into the deep 40%. But until then, this actually does matter a little bit more in that it is a further confirmation, I do believe, of the theory that I've been kind of espousing on this channel. I don't think this is like anything super unique, but that we're seeing a rotational market, which is a signal of long-term strength and long-term health. It's kind of how the traditional markets get kind of kept up for so long. It's like you see different sectors get rotated around, and then the overall index just continues upwards and onwards. Anyways, my point is that while Bitcoin has been grinding up against, this current region, just above $50,000, that has then led to a spark in Ethereum. And then that spark in Ethereum seems to have kind of spilled over to altcoins. So we see that money not leaving the system, but staying within the system. And well, that's indicative that things likely do continue. We haven't really seen like the garbage shit rally like super hard just yet. When that starts happening, I'm gonna get pretty concerned. But as of right now, it still looks like the overall market probably has more, which I know sounds crazy, more long term. Again, that is long term. It's just the real question to me is, does Bitcoin play out a nice correction kind of from its current area, or do we see it just take off from here? And really what I've come down to on this one is that, look, on CME, as long as this closing above like 50, just below $51,000, up and upwards and onwards is the more likely resolution. If it does start to close below there, okay, we're probably, I know I said maybe 48 before, all the way down to 46. I do think it's more like 46 to 47 actually, for the next higher low attempt. And then still continuation to the upside would still be my first thing that I'd be looking at. Anyways, that is going to do it for today. I should also let you know that I'm working on an update for the Jewel Light. So if you do have access to the Chart Prime package or just the Jewel Light bundle, you're going to get that update just automatically. We're going to be working on it over this next week. I do think it can be completed relatively soon, but I'm pretty excited to, present like the next evolution for this one. So just keep an eye out for that. Obviously, I'll make an announcement on this channel as well. And also, I should let you know that we are in the process of moving everything actually back to Teachable. It just seems to be a better venue for what we're trying to do right now. Doesn't really mean that you need to do anything as of this moment, unless you like quite literally just want access there and you already have something. You can message Elsa at crowntrading.net to process that for you, but there's not going to be any changes right now. It will be relevant in the future, but I'll let you know when, and we'll actually have a more automated solution to just bring you over anyway, so no problem there. Okay, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. Like I said, maybe a live stream tomorrow. It's possible if I can set up this damn computer, this fucking beat, like it's actually humongous. It's actually humongous. You can't even see all of it because it's like hidden behind my screen. You can even see outside. Oh, you can see outside. Hello. Looks like Chicago. Kind of reminds me of Chicago. Actually, this side maybe looks a little bit more like Chicago. Anyways, it'll be like old times yet again. In fact, I'm planning on doing more and more live streams in the upcoming months. I just think that I don't know, it'd be a fun way to kind of spend the time. And I got more free time now that we've moved to Dubai. Time zones have helped us out a little bit. So what I'm trying to get to is the timing of it, which I want your opinion on. I'm thinking of doing it around 7 a.m. Well, no, that's okay. That would be Eastern European time zone, but I want to do it around, what would that be, UTC? Let me just double check right here. I can't show you my Google search history. That would be very, very bad. Time UTC. I need to do this conversion really quickly. Okay, so it is 6 a.m. UTC. I would be planning on doing it at 5 a.m. UTC, which would be like midnight Eastern Standard Time. So do whatever conversions you need to do if you happen to give a fuck about that. And I think that's about the time that I'd be adherent to. It's possible I could also try later in the day as well, basically American morning, like 7 a.m. Eastern time, something like that, or 8 a.m. Eastern time. But just curious what your thoughts are on that. I think that's a good place for me to be signing off on now. Hopefully I get my keyboard later today so I can continue to set up this new beast, and then we can get going tomorrow. If not, next week is the time. So with all of that said, as always, I want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Friday.